All right, Sheepdog Nation, hey, welcome to podcast number 12 for us. A little unique format today. We are actually out at Heroes Ranch, where we like to think the magic happens between outdoor adventures, warrior path, and other levels of engagement. So you get to see a little bit of the inside of our facilities here at the ranch. And this podcast, if you are watching and not just listening, we're also having fun with a discussion about our Kilimanjaro Climb outdoor adventure. We have special guests with us. You know, I say special guests because anyone that is on this podcast is special. But at the same time, all three of our guests tonight are senior staff members or play important roles within the organization itself. Kilimanjaro is the focus of this month's podcast, and we're really excited to be able to share our experiences, one, having climbed it, but also hopefully we will inspire others to not only, one, consider climbing Kilimanjaro, but any adventure from the standpoint of how we preach the importance of getting up off that couch. So the hope is that we will inspire you in a multitude of different ways that get you up and moving and living your best life. So that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about our three guests. And I'll start to my immediate left. We've got Colonel David Nate, how we know him. Nathanson was born and raised and educated in New Jersey, and we like to tease Nate a lot about his surfing skills. He's actually a really good surfer, but he's from New Jersey. And sometimes it's hard to believe that we've got a son of New Jersey with us that's a good surfer. Nate joined the Marine Corps back in 1986 and served both on the enlisted side initially, went on to serve in a very distinguished manner as an officer of Marines. And you retired what year was it, Nate?
2021.
2021, giving you a total of how many years?
34 and 7 months.
34 years and 7 months. He hasn't nailed down. So obviously Nate's experience as a Marine and the time that he has spent serving others really kind of speaks to the value of everyone that we've got serving with us from the standpoint of who and what they are as sheepdogs, and certainly proud of what Nate does for us also with Sheepdog University. What was one of your finer moments, you would think, in the Marine Corps?
Oh, that's easy. It's one I'm most proud of, and that was my meritorious private first class at boot camp.
Really?
Absolutely. and I told people the reason was that was the only promotion that was truly mine. Every other promotion after that was because somebody enabled me, they mentored me. In a lot of cases, my Marines picked me up and carried me. So that promotion will always be the most special.
Really?
Me. Yeah.
Well, that's, I think meritorious ones, when you think about it, really are, because you know you busted your butt in some capacity to get there. But you made that at boot camp.
Yeah, that was one of the, so the drill instructor wouldn't allow me to be the honor grad. He said, nobody from New Jersey and nobody so short can carry the stick at graduation. But I did achieve one of the meritorious promotions, the PFC, one of only two out of the platoon. And again, not my only meritorious promotion, but once I hit the fleet, I was raised and groomed and cared for by some amazing Marines.
People help lift you up.
Exactly.
But in boot camp, there ain't nobody there to lift you up.
No, and it was touch or go whether I was going to make it through boot camp, because I was every bit a punk when I showed up at Parris Island.
Okay. Now, when it comes to your time as an officer, what unit or billet or position do you look back on with the most fondness?
Again, an easy answer. My time with 7th Marines as both Ripper 4 and RCT 7 for the initial invasion into Iraq, and then go back the next year and spend the time doing SASO, which eventually became full kinetics again. I joined the Marine Corps because of 7th Marines. John Basilone, son of New Jersey, Medal of Honor winner. I was captivated by his service and his story, went to his parades every year, and at the tender age of probably about 9 or 10, I declared, I was going to be a Marine, which was laughable at the time if you had seen me. But yeah, without a doubt, 7th Marines, that time in the Marine Corps' history, the men who were surrounding me, legends in the Marine Corps, and then the opportunity to do it when it mattered the most makes it stand out as the fondest memory.
I love that. You know, I forgot about Basilone being from New Jersey.
Yeah.
So that I could see that speaking to you in a really powerful way. So, well, we're certainly glad to have Nate with us tonight. And you've been with us with Sheepdog for how long? Has it been 2 years?
It'll be 2 years in April.
2 years in April. And that just, again, speaks to how fast time flies. All right, our second guest, and almost as famous as Basilone, right, as Jason Richardson.
Yeah.
And that's only because he spent time as an MP throwing good Marines in jail is what I always like to tease him about. But Jason, you're originally from Texas, raised there, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
And you joined the Marine Corps in '94. Certainly something that you were passionate about. As I teased, you spent time as in the military police. And was it a total of 4 years?
4.
4 solid years, okay. And what was if you had to think of a time in the Marine Corps, what was something that was really memorable to you that kind of stands out as a defining moment or experience?
So, not to beat up on my parents, but also at a I guess immature age, younger age, I think a defining moment. The defining moment for me actually was I was senior in high school, and Mom and Dad kind of sat me down and said, "We're not paying for school. We don't think that would be a good investment and a wise use of your time. So we're not paying for school." So I sat on that for 2 or 3 weeks. It's probably 2 or 3 weeks, and I came in, and I still say the best decision I made in my life. I came in and told Mom, "Hey, I think I'm going to join the Marine Corps." And she literally blew me off. Came back about a week and a half later, and I slid the papers across the desk and I said, "I'm leaving in September." So from a defining moment for me in my life was the decision to join the Marine Corps and to serve our great nation. So it was pretty pivotal for me. Now my service with others and whatnot throughout my short career, it's hard to follow someone who's been around for 34, but man, I have multiple memories, and I still have brothers that I talk to, 30 plus years later. So
And that's kind of the key, right? It's the bonds that we build in that time of service, which really kind of defines our time in uniform. I think that really, truly, even to Nate's point, 7th Marines and the men that and women that you serve with are ultimately what creates that passion for what we do, right? I always say that when you're overseas or you're sitting in that fighting hole, it is about the man or woman to your left or your right that inspires you to do your best, right, and lifts you up. You kind of forget all about the hoorah stuff, and it's more about being there when your fellow service member needs you, right? And so those relationships are really critical. So, well, you've been linked to us as an organization going on, is it 13 plus years? We're 15 years old. I want to say you were year 1 or 2.
13 or 14, roughly.
Yeah. So
it'll probably be 14, I think. And it was in January, so it was 13 or 14.
Okay.
I'm definitely into 13.
You're in that. Yeah. You've been around long enough that when someone asks who you are, I always say Jason is one of our most senior members from the standpoint of how long you've been around. And obviously, as we talk about Kilimanjaro, I think we can lean into the fact that all 3 of you climbed Kili together this past summer. So that's part of why we have you all here together, but you've got unique backgrounds. And you've been with Walmart now for how long?
Also about 14.
So 14 years.
Yeah.
So you had just moved up to Northwest Arkansas, is that correct?
So I I think I moved to Northwest Arkansas in '08 ballpark.
Okay.
We moved here from Texas in '03 to go to school. Went to school, got a couple degrees, and moved up here. My only decision is that we should have done it sooner. Should have moved up here sooner.
Should have
But
gotten here earlier. But,
man,
well,
I love it up here.
once you're here and you're glad. So our next special guest, and if y'all are wondering, it's I hate to say this during the middle of the podcast, but the Broncos and Chiefs are also playing, and the score's 19-19. If you're curious, so everybody was like, whether the Broncos win or not determines on how well this podcast goes.
Thanks for the update.
So there's the update for Jen. And Jennifer Evans was born, and this is the one I didn't know, Norristown, Pennsylvania. And we got a couple Northeast people here with us. Where were you born, Jason?
Houston.
You were born
Beaumont.
You were born down in Texas. I was a Texas boy then. But we got Pennsylvania and New Jersey with us, but you were raised in Aurora, Colorado.
Yes.
At what age did you move there?
We moved to Aurora when I was 5, so
You were
Denver
young.
is home.
So that's
for
really
me.
kind of home for you. And I think the key in noting, our relationship beyond working together with Sheepdog is the fact that you served in the Air Force and the Air National Guard, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, my daughter is in Air Force boot camp right now, and will end up serving in the Arkansas Air National Guard. But what is something, when you think about your time in service in the Air Force or leading up to and or while in, really really resonates for you?
I think for me, Lance, I didn't join the Air Force until much later in life. I was 26 years old. I was married. I had 2 kids already. My boys, Trevor and Blake, were 6 and 7 years old when I decided to serve my country. It really was never on my radar to join the military. I moved to Cabot, Arkansas, Central Arkansas, when my youngest was only a month old, and which is just right outside Little Rock Air Force Base.
Yeah.
And we just once they were growing up, a lot of our friends were serving in the Air Force, the Air National Guard, and just never crossed my mind. And we were sitting outside at a baseball game. Our kids were playing t-ball, and this girl started talking to me about the Air Guard, and she's like, this is something that you could definitely, I could see you doing. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah. And so I started looking into it and really researching the Air Force and what I wanted to do. And my first initial thought was get in and get out and get back home to my kids, right? And that's why I chose the Air National Guard. And during that short time before I left for basic training, I was watching my boys grow up, and I knew that I wanted to do more than just get in and get out. If I was going to put my all into something, that I was going to do the best that I could. And that's when I chose a longer career and got into emergency management with the Air Force, and knew that that was something that I could really dive deep into and enjoy. And that was my decision. So
Well, that's awesome, though. 26.
yes,
That'd be very different from the 3 of us on
very much so.
us joining the Marine Corps. Is we were much younger, probably much more immature with our decision making. But when I think of someone at
Still
20,
am.
still, but yeah, so that's very debatable there, right, on whether we've grown up yet. But yeah, 26. That is a much older, mature point in your life. I think of the mid-20s for myself, as you're really starting to think about, okay, who am I and what do I want to be? Who do I want to be, right? So that's big for you to make a decision like that. And you had kids already too. So.
I did. I was a stay-at-home mom, and so
Wow.
in order to make that shift and change and then to be gone for so long in the beginning was a big decision, but I knew that I wanted to be able to help provide for my family and then also serve my country once I was in that area with a bunch of military people around me. I was like, this is really something that I want to get involved in and do.
So you mentioned emergency management. Was that your MOS
That was.
in the Air National Guard, really?
Yes, yes.
So emergency management, I love that. Did you end up going back to school in any way for that?
So I originally had planned it, and then I did not. So as soon as I got back from basic and tech school, I was doing my drill weekend, and I received a phone call on my drill weekend that at Camp Robinson they were hiring for a full-time emergency management position with the Army, and so I went out there and worked with them for a little while and took a AGR position.
Okay.
And so I was full-time from there on out for the rest of my career, and
How long was that?
just short of 10 years.
Wow,
I served.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. So your total time in service was how long?
9.5 years.
Okay, all right. And then the 10 doing that as well, is that
No,
right?
just, that was total.
That was the total time there. Okay, awesome. Well, obviously something to be very proud of. So I think that goes back to us saying we've got 3 special guests. It's, you've had stellar careers and experiences and the way you served and the different elements of it, right? So it really takes me into an interesting conversation for us when we start thinking about Kilimanjaro, because I think most people, anytime I share with people that don't know me well enough about the things that we do as an organization, outdoor adventures and different places we've been, the one that seems to always catch people off guard is Kilimanjaro, because everyone seems to say, well, I'm pretty sure it's in Africa, right? And I go, yes. They have no clue what country, right? Tanzania. And so that begins an interesting conversation where there's like, well, why? Why would you go to Africa and climb a mountain, right? And the answer for me is unique, and I obviously want to hear y'all's. And partly for me was my father was my mother and father were in Mali in northwestern Africa. My dad, obviously a Marine pilot for years. When he got out, he was finding different ways to continue flying, and one of them was to go to Mali in North Africa and fly missionaries all over Africa. And to fund that, they would also fly gold miners around. So the gold miners would pay them top dollar to travel from mine to mine in Africa, and they would take that money and use it to pay for getting missionaries all over the continent. So I say that and noting that I went to visit my parents, and my dad and I wanted to go to the Bamako U.S. Embassy, the Mali Embassy, and visit the Marines. And I was still in the Marine Corps at the time, because this was 15 years ago. And we walked in to visit with the staff NCOIC on duty, and he started talking about how he was short 3 Marines and that they had gone to climb Kilimanjaro. So he had given leave to 3 of his Marines to climb Kili. And at the time, I had this very far-fetched aspiration to climb Mount Everest. And in getting ready for Everest, it was you got to climb all these other peaks. And as I was reading about climbers who had been up Everest, a lot of them had climbed all the big 7, right? The 7 continents, the tallest peak on every continent. And so Kilimanjaro, obviously, I was familiar with it, but I don't think I ever thought about climbing it, because I was going to do McKinley or Denali in Alaska, and then that would be my stepping stone to what would have been Everest. And thank God I didn't pursue that any further than I did. But because Kili gave, I know me personally, everything I wanted and then some twice. And but for me, I think that planted a seed, being there at the U.S. Embassy and hearing that other Marines, 3 Marines were climbing the mountain. I thought, wow, that would be neat to come back and experience. So you fast forward, Sheepdog was a concept at that time, but to imagine us turning it into a powerful outdoor adventure was not. Heck, the outdoor adventure program was not a seed or a thought at that time. So really unique in the fact that we as an organization have expanded globally in so many different ways. Jason and I had the opportunity with a group of fellow sheepdogs do Hadrian's Wall in Great Britain. And then you turned around and went up Kili just a few weeks later, right? So that 90 miles of hiking got you ready for Kilimanjaro on top of all the other training you'd been doing.
Right.
And you also lost a lot of weight. But I share all of that to get to y'all's story on the why and about the power of it, because I can speak to it for myself and that it will change your life. And I think that's what's really neat about this podcast is us learning about the reason why y'all did it and what was the impact like on you. So on that note, let me start with you, Jason. Can we break it up a little bit?
Yeah.
So why did you want to climb Kilimanjaro?
So I think originally for me was probably I've gone through Warrior Path probably 2 years at the time, or up now. At that time, it had been about a year, and we had discussed the possibility of me going to Kili, and then when I learned I was going to Kili, and then one of the things, one of the techniques that we learned in Path obviously is setting that big goal, right? So it helped me kind of. One of the things that I wanted to get from it was setting that goal, getting physically in shape, and getting mentally better, right? Because I think when I started training, I weighed roughly like 228, and I weigh right now when we're 3-4 months post peak Kili, and I weigh 183. So I've lost well over 40 pounds.
Wow.
And I'm maintaining it, right? So that's the other kicker.
Absolutely.
You can lose the weight, but can you maintain it? So I think setting the goal, of summiting Kili was a big piece for me. And then just from a PTG or post-traumatic growth standpoint, learning more about myself and gaining some insights on just me personally and finding some peace that I was looking for in my life.
Well, and
Phenomenal trip. Phenomenal trip. Words cannot describe, and I don't know what they will say, but I can tell you all day long how phenomenal and impactful and beautiful, but words can't do it. Until you see it, words just can't do it.
till you live it, right?
Yeah.
Thinking about your weight loss, and of all of it that I think I've listened to and heard about your experience and your preparation, I think the one that stands out the most to me, and you correct me where I'm wrong, is I've heard that you quit drinking.
Also quit drinking.
Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, for some of the people out there listening, I mean, that's a powerful statement, because whether it's smoking, drinking alcohol, you name gambling, anything that kind of, I think even casual drinking, sometimes you don't appreciate that even a casual drink is in itself a mini addiction, because you kind of say, well, I just drank casually, but that casually might be 3 or 4 beers a meal or a dinner or whatever it might be, and in their mind that's casually, right? Whereas the reality is that sometimes it can start to take a little bit more control of your life than you realize.
Oh, yeah.
Not that you were having a serious problem with it, but that in stopping that truly helped with your weight loss.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And probably mentally as well,
Also.
detoxifying, getting alcohol out of your body, right?
Oh, yeah.
So there was a lot involved for you. It wasn't just the weight loss, it was a change in your lifestyle.
Oh, yeah. The Kili for me was definitely, it was impactful both physically and mentally for me, for sure. And as soon as I could go back to the text. I want to say it was January 8th. I got the text. I think it was. And as soon as I got the text, I was like, I'm done. And I haven't touched any alcohol since. Right, and part of that is learning how to go through some of the growth techniques that we learned through Path. Mm-hmm. And then recognizing when I am, weaker, leaning in on my 3 to 5, the people that are important to me, kind of help get me through some of that. And then kind of, to your point, as you're growing and you're learning and things like that, it's easy to put down for a short time sometimes, right? But then you start, like you said, I'll have a beer tonight, or I'll have a beer tomorrow, or whatever the case may be, and it turns into, you start drinking 3 or 4 times a week.
It's more often than you think.
It's more often than you think, right? And not drinking now, you realize, man, I was drinking all the damn time. That's too much, right?
Yeah.
So it was a struggle. It was a struggle for me. It's not a struggle anymore.
What was the most memorable part of the climb that you can think of?
Yeah, so these two, I think, helped make the trip for me. And there were times, and they'll tell their own story. They may have something similar, but there were times, I think, as you're gaining in altitude and you get tired and or you get frustrated or whatever the case may be, right? Sometimes you may lean in on your teammates and say, hey man, here's what I'm noticing, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I'm struggling with. So, as we're going up the mountain, having those personal interactions, I think it's awesome to summit and whatnot with Kelly, but if I had summited by myself, it would not have been the same without these two for sure.
Yeah.
So that was extremely impactful for me and helped in my success for the summit for sure.
Jen, what's your why?
My why is a little different. Obviously, everybody's is going to be. When you approached me and asked me if that was something I'd be interested in, never in a million years did I even think it would be possible for me to accomplish something like that, let alone be given just the opportunity. And my why became, the reason why my military career was cut short was I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis while I was in. And so I was medically retired, and it's a lot like what we talk about empath or on an outdoor adventure, that very first quote being damaged goods. And for so long I just felt like I was damaged, and I wasn't going to be able to do all these things that I wanted to accomplish in life because I was handed this diagnosis that, so for me, my why just became, I can do it, just because people in my life had told me I can't do it. And given that opportunity, I knew that I was here not just to do it for myself, but for maybe other people that have been given a horrible diagnosis or an unforeseen circumstance in their life, that there's still things that are possible as long as you put your mind to it and as long as you just keep on one foot in front of the other, that you can do it. And so my why was just to prove to myself more than anything that I'm capable of anything I put my mind to. And it was a very, I want to say it was an easy decision to say yes to you, that, yeah, I want to do it, but it wasn't. I did take some time to think about it because, that's a long, that's a long haul. You've done it twice now. And so I really took some time to think about it, talked to my family about it and my kids, and I just wanted to prove it to myself, because I think we're so hard on ourselves as individuals, and we beat ourselves up for the things that we've been through and dealt with in our lives. And for me, I just really wanted to take that home and prove to myself, and then to prove to some other people that have doubted me in my life, that has told me, you can't do that, you can't do this. And I said, watch and see. And so that's my why. Yeah.
That's awesome. So if there was, kind of like Jason, if there was that one thing that was kind of the most memorable part.
It's a pretty powerful moment. It was a summit night. So, we did the 8-day Lemosha route. Mm-hmm. And so it's 6.5 days summit, a day and a half down. And we started the night summit, you start at midnight. And it's dark. And you're just in your thoughts and in your feelings. And my biggest concern climbing that mountain was, is my MS going to flare up on me? Am I going to, struggle with the altitude? What's going to happen? All the things. And with having these two guys and Danielle as well by my side and just encouraging me that whole time, we were getting near the summit and we got, the sun started to come up and I knew, I was like, we're not there yet, and we started to see the sun come up on the mountain and it was the three of us and I knew that they were struggling and I was going slower and I kept saying, you guys just go, like I will be there, just go, don't let me hold you back. And for a while they stuck with me and they're like, no Jim, we got you, and I guess probably about an hour later we still weren't up to the top and they finally peeled off and went ahead and I made it to that first summit, Stella, right?
Yeah.
I made it there with my guide and I was exhausted. The fatigue had set in, but I knew just around that corner, was the summit, the peak that I had been wanting to get to so bad. So I sat down for a few minutes and drank my juice box and cookie that they provided with us, said a few prayers and kept going. And my guide was like, you want to keep going? Like, this is considered the summit too. You can get a certificate. And I said, no, like, this isn't it. Like, I didn't make it this far to stop. I hadn't seen these two turn around yet. So in my mind, I was just hoping, I'll just pass them along the way, give them a high five, and keep going. And maybe I'll be lucky enough to catch them at the peak. But when they say pulley and slow, it was just one step, in front of the other and stopping every 20 feet or so. And it was probably about 15 minutes before I hit that final summit that I see these guys coming back. And I'm just exhausted. I've been on the mountain now for 8 hours. And I knew I would make it, and I saw them, and they were kind of struggling with the altitude, and gave them some hugs, and I was like, all right, Nico, I was like, let's go, I've got to make it, and these two turned around and said, we're going with you. They weren't going to let me summit by myself, which at that point I knew I had brothers for life. I kind of knew it already in the 6 days prior, and but it was at that moment when they walked with me and made sure that I made it and made it to the top and didn't do it alone. That was the most memorable, impactful moment of probably one of the most memorable moments of my life, really.
That's awesome.
So,
That
thank
really
you
is
guys.
powerful.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
I told myself I wouldn't do this, but
Well, no, that's a strong statement to the power of, the camaraderie that y'all were building. And, I do want to, share and remind people that, one, it wasn't just the three of you. You also had Franz, who was our very first Vietnam-era veteran that went to climb Kilimanjaro. And not everybody that we send, makes it to the top. It's very challenging, as you all will attest and have attested, that it will kick your butt in many ways, right? And unfortunately, Franz didn't make it, but also Danielle climbed with y'all, and Ron, and was that it?
That was it.
And then, but Joe didn't climb with y'all, but Joe went with you. So it was the
Right.
6 of y'all as a team. And half the team summited. But, I've tried to remind everyone that has been and not summited that how many people never get up and try anything, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think that's the point that we try to stress with people. For me, it's not always about finishing, which is powerful. You want everybody to finish. You want everybody to get to the top. But what's more powerful to me is your willingness to try. Because ultimately, you can't succeed at anything if you don't first attempt. And sometimes it does take more than once. And so when I think about, I feel the frustration that we have in people who've been and haven't made it to the top, and it's real. I've been there. I've experienced it. It's a horrible feeling. But at the same time, I cannot stress enough with people out there that might be thinking about it. And hopefully y'all will, attest to this, is that the experience of even the attempt is powerful. I mean, you're in Africa, one. You're in Tanzania. you're on Kilimanjaro. That's a powerful experience in itself. And the effort that is put into summit, and again, your willingness to get up off that damn couch is what we talk about a lot. You know, it begins with a desire and a willingness to get up and move. And that's what I hope anyone out there listening takes from this, is that you can say all day long, oh, I'll never make it. That's right, you never will if you don't try.
Exactly.
So get up and try. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and hear Nate's story on the why. And we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about the uniqueness of the climb, the people, which are very special, the porters, the guides, and the country and nation of Tanzania, the town of Moshi, and just so much more that, to me, is what the climb is all about. It's not just the mountain. It's everything wrapped around that, plus the safari that you get to see, what everybody really thinks about when you think about Africa. So we'll be right back and talk with our special guests here on Sheepdog Nation.
We'd like to thank Sam's Furniture for sponsoring this episode of Sheepdog Nation. A big shout out to Joe and Lara Donaldson and the entire Sam's Furniture family for the amazing support that they continue to show Sheepdog Impact Assistance. We could not do what we do without their amazing support. Again, thank you to Sam's Furniture.
All right, we are back with this edition of Sheepdog Nation, and we are talking about our Kilimanjaro Climb in Africa that we do every summer. And if I'm not mistaken, this was our fourth, at least our fourth climb. So Jason, Jen, y'all shared kind of your why. So Nate, what was your why? Why did you decide to accept the challenge to climb Kilimanjaro?
Thanks, Lance, and thanks on multiple levels. First and foremost, for allowing me the opportunity to summit with these two amazing human beings, and thanks to Joe to make this possible. My why is a little bit complicated, and it didn't reveal itself to me until probably about a week or so before we left. I'm married to a Gold Star widow, and I have other friends who are Gold Star widows as well. And you mentioned the summiting of Everest. So the idea of climbing a mountain to heal came to me from two important Gold Star women in my life. And my wife, who climbed Machu Picchu after her first husband passed, and the person that really helped me get mentally prepared, Leslie Gilhorn. She has summited all of the major summits to include Everest.
Really?
And part of her healing from the loss of her husband.
Wow.
And so, you asked, or maybe I asked you, and you said yes, and I started to really try to think about why. And so those two women stand out to me as poster children for post-traumatic growth. I don't know how you can be married to somebody for multiple decades one morning, and through their service, they don't come home. And you still can find the way to uplift everybody you come in contact with. I mean, my wife has dedicated her life to helping other widows and sheepdogs be the best possible version of themselves. Leslie went on to become an orthopedic trauma surgeon in her grief. And so when I saw what it did for those two in terms of healing, I started to think about what could it mean for me. And I ignored my trauma for my entire adult life, and the first time I actually acknowledged it was while I was at Warrior Path. Sitting in the labyrinth, I was able to take that mask of command off for the first time. After I left Warrior Path and did my 90 days, I felt a change, but I still felt there was something left to get rid of, to truly be the expert guide that we're called to be post-path. And what I realized was I needed something to get me to a state of ego kill. Because until I killed my ego, true healing was just going to continue to be just right outside my grasp. And so a couple days before we were getting ready to leave, And based on our last phone call with you about lost luggage and the ability to maybe not summit and some of the challenges associated with being an advanced age climber, I said to myself, you know what? It's been a great journey to get ready. It's going to be an amazing opportunity to spend time with these great humans. If I don't summit, that's okay. And I realized that I was beginning to really kill my ego, which I discovered was very important for me to heal. Because as we were walking every day, okay, today could be the last day, and that's okay. And as we lost climbers, I started to be confronted with the reality that I could be next. And I realized in those quiet moments at night that that's okay. If I don't summit, that's okay. And I didn't feel the pressure to lead from the front. I didn't feel the pressure to take care of anybody. I was certainly there to do whatever my teammates needed, but for the first time in my adult life, I realized that I was doing something for myself, and if I didn't make it, that was okay. And nobody was going to be able to say I was less of a person, less of a man for trying. So that became my why, and it kind of presented itself about the week before we left, and then it really came home at about 15,000 feet when I said, it's okay if I fail.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, your inspiration, in mentioning those wives, those Gold Star wives, and, the families that surround that loss. But, yeah, when you think about that from especially the widow that climbed all 7 peaks, right? That's some inspiration right there. But I think, the thing that stood out to me just then about you was the ability to just kind of let go and not worry, because I think that's what sometimes sets us up for failure, is the worrying about the failure and not just the blessing and the effort, right? Which we just talked about before the break. And the power of getting up and trying is what it's really all about. So with that being said, what was the thing or things that stood out to you that powerful moment or experience while you were climbing that really kind of still stands out to you?
There were 2 moments that were equally powerful, and neither one of them had to do with the actual climb, but they came in the afterglow of the summit. When we got to the end of the climb, we were sitting waiting for our transportation back to the camp, and we shared a Coke and some laughs and some smiles and some camaraderie. And I turned around, and 30 seconds later, Jen was passed out on her arms on the table we were sitting at. And I just looked at that, and I said to myself, the trust, the connection, the comfort that she had to have been feeling in that moment to just let herself be completely vulnerable and know that, Jason and Danielle and I were there, and she was safe to just go to sleep in a foreign country after such a physically exhausting experience. And then a couple days later on safari, I look over and my buddy here is sound asleep, mouth open, catching flies. And I just realized the same thing. When I first met Jason, I couldn't have imagined that, about 8-9 months later, we would be as close as we are now. He would be completely comfortable and trusting around us to just go to sleep and know that it was okay. And so for me, that was the most powerful thing about the experience, was the way the team came together and the way the team formed a bond of trust and love and support that I hadn't experienced since I took the uniform off.
It's interesting, though, that we all kind of share that human connection, right? I think that was powerful. I think it was really powerful, the human connection of the climb itself. All the stuff that goes into it and all the amazing things about the mountain itself. And then the people in your life are what really have a huge impact on you. It's one of those, anyway.
No, I mean, I think we've all experienced it in the military. The power behind a lot of what made our service so special was the people. And, you think about a deployment or I mean, boot camp, whatever, those really challenging times is where you grow closest to a lot of people. And I even share this from a standpoint of marriage. It's part of why a couple can grow so close is because you face adversity together, right? So whether it's a marriage, it's a combat deployment, or climbing a mountain, or you fill in the blank with adversity, when you feel like the person that you're in the fight with has your back, it creates a special bond, right? But I also think that's where, losing trust in someone, why it's so painful at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. It's because you've been through tough things together, and then it's like, well, why can't we get through all tough things together? And I don't think that that should knock anyone outside of the fact that just unfortunately adversity is tough, and it can break you or it can bond you. It can bring you together or it can push you apart. And what I love hearing about y'all's experience is that it sounds like it really brought y'all together. And that speaks volumes from the standpoint of part of why we do this. I think there's the individual level where we're challenging individuals, each of you as an example, to get up and challenge yourselves. But then that next dynamic is the bringing you together as a team in an effort to create those bonds. So it is layered, but exciting to hear each of your whys. I'd like for each of you to share a little bit about your impression of, and just kind of all three of you just kind of share as you feel or think about things, or you want to, feed on something that someone else is sharing, but your impression of the guides, the porters, and any other people that, because to me it is about the people. I always jokingly say I get out of bed because of the people we serve, and some days I don't want to get out of bed because of the people we serve, right? So that's the challenge of life, and that's what's beautiful about it, and sometimes is a little challenging, but I think the beauty outweighs that. So when we think about Africa and Kili, for me, Tanzania and the town of Moshi, but more important, the people we spend the most time with outside of us as a sheepdog team are definitely the guides and the porters. So anything you'd like to share about the porters and the guides and what they did?
We had an incredible group of support, porters, guides, everything, and you can't say enough about them, and the ability that they have to carry as much as they do on their heads, on their backs, on their shoulders, and just pass you on that mountain like it's nothing. Mm-hmm. And then for me, I think the most influential people besides our guides was the porters, and there's one in particular that I took favor to, and I think we each had our own favorite porter that, they pass you and they leave camp after you and they set up camp, and then they come back and they find you on the trail and they help you and they approach us singing to us, encouraging us to keep going, and Hakuna Matata, no worries, and there's one guy in particular, and it took me until probably day 4 to figure out how to say his name, and it's Mogela, and I probably said it 15 million different ways the first time, but he would just have the biggest smile on his face, and every time I saw him and he would start doing these noises and singing, and he'd go, Jenny, Jenny, Jenny. And it was just a sigh of relief because, you've been hiking for who knows how many hours, felt like days, and probably at it had been days. And he just comes up and he grabs my pack and, you say thank you, and he's like, Hakuna Matata, no worries. And I only ever heard that in The Lion King before.
Right,
so
and you thought Disney made that up too, right?
No, and that's what they use, and just to see them and how excited they were to just go do it all over again and hike back and carry your day pack so that you are having the best possible experience you can, and just the fact that they're always smiling regardless, they put their pants on just like we do. They have family and stuff at home, and they're away from that, but they take that time to truly cater to us and give us the best possible experience. And he was probably, one that sticks out to me. Our guides and everybody else was just fantastic. I can't say enough things about him, but that one in particular, he just really stood out and took care of, to me personally, so.
Any other thoughts?
Absolutely. And I think we all got adopted by a porter. Mine was Stima.
Yeah.
And he was this young man, 27 years old, full of energy, full of life. And the challenge I had was trying to help him understand how critical of a role he was playing in my healing journey. For him, it was how to bring money into the household. It was a way of life. And I think with a lot of other climbers that don't go there for some of the same motivations that sheepdogs will go, they might not really understand what they're doing and the gift that they're truly giving us. And again, he played a critical role in the death of my ego, because, Colonel Nathanson would have never given his pack up, ever. It just wouldn't have happened. And after the first encounter, I willingly gave my pack to this young man. The way they do it with so little, we had many conversations in our workup. It turns out Jason and I both like gear. And so there were many conversations about what gear we were taking, the best gear available at whatever price point. And we went on the mountain with the most, expensive professional gear we could possibly have. And this young man is in old sneakers, a pack that's held together with tape and wire, and he just powers up this mountain. And he made such an impact on me. And when I started to ask questions about their access to some of the gear and equipment that we had, they said there's nowhere in the country to get it. And so for me, it made it easy. At the end of my trip, I left all my gear with him. And I said, here, it can't even come close to paying you for what you gave me, but if anything that I give you makes your time on the mountain a little bit easier, a little bit more enjoyable, or just makes you think of our team, here you go. And so just their humility, their compassion, their desire for us to succeed was pretty impressive. They wanted us to get up the mountain. So that speaks, I think, to the culture that many Americans probably will never come in contact with unless they seek something out like this. And I believe it would be difficult to run into most cities in this country and meet people so willing to help you achieve a personal goal as a stranger, regardless of what you were paying them.
Well, you're right.
So I just think, again, Jason talks about the human aspect. Unbelievable, just the way we were treated.
I can't remember, I'm going blank right now on his name. He was the chef, really tall, skinny, and I'm going blank on his name. I'm pretty sure y'all had him with y'all. I know he's still with them, according to Praise and Living. Really tall.
We had a different chef.
Yeah, we had a short chef.
You must have a different chef. And I know they're running sometimes 2 and 3 expeditions up the mountain. And I'm sitting here again wishing I wasn't going blank, but he climbed that mountain. And I say that mountain up to base camp, because he stayed at base camp, which is 15,000 feet. And he did it in penny loafers. Okay, so think about that. We're talking Sunday shoes, slick bottoms, penny loafers. And I teased him because he didn't have pennies. Where they have that little slot where you're supposed to slide a penny? He didn't have pennies in his penny loafers. And at the end, you talk about, and he was always singing. I think is the thing that we all remembered most about him, is he was also in charge of bringing the group together when they do that group chant and song. And they did that several mornings for us. But he was, even if it wasn't choreographed or wasn't planned in there, he was always singing on his own. So I took pride in giving him my boots. And, Hoka climbing boots. And to your point, something he would never have a chance to have access to, unfortunately, in Tanzania. And it brought such a smile to his face. And he took such pride in it. I kept saying, I mean, this is nothing compared to what you've given to us, right? And he was so grateful, but trying to impress upon him, these are just shoes. But then you stop and think about it, they're not just shoes to him. To us, they're just something we can get anywhere at any time. To him, it was truly a treasure that, one, he would never have access to. And the level of gratefulness that he showed still to this day amazes me. And I enjoyed talking to Praise and Living. So if the audience don't know, a gentleman named Praise owns the company that takes us up the mountain, and Living is one of his senior guides. They came and visited us here at the ranch over the last month or so, and I asked specifically about our chef and the boots, and they said that he still wears them with pride. So Living actually laughed and said he'll probably be buried in those boots, which, again, for us as Americans, you know, if we wear a pair of shoes for over a year, we think we've worn them too long because we just don't appreciate what we have. So on that note, Jason, kind of what was, you know, your impression of the guides, the porters, the people?
So I don't know if I'll be able to add any additional outside of kind of the daily things that they do. One thing that struck me or stood out to me was, so from the time you meet your guides, right, and you go to the office, and that's when you meet the guides and the porter team, and everybody goes through, and there's probably 30 people there, 30 guides and porters who are going to help 6 people get up that stinking mountain, right? Mm-hmm. And they go through one by one, and they tell you their name, and of course you don't remember all 30 people, but by the end of the week you get to know almost half of them, if not more. But what's surprising to me and stood out to me was from the time that you meet them, they greeted you with song. To the day that first day we stepped off on the mountain, it's always Hakuna Matata, Pole Pole, good job, good job. Mm-hmm. From sunup to sundown, if they were in front of us, they gave 100%.
Yeah.
Every day, literally from day one until after we were done and sitting, they were watching us sleep, and they were still singing and chatting and gathering our gear and taking care of things that we needed and making sure that we were taken care of. So I just think the amount of effort that they put in, it's definitely not something that you see in the States.
No.
I mean, it is not. And just the way that they go out of their way to, I guess, take care of each individual climber and make sure that each individual climber's needs are met. And they literally know, like, you like to be on, you know, sleeping on this side, and you like to be sleeping on this side, because even when you would get back to your tent, they would make sure your gear was on that side of the tent or on that side of the tent. Am I right?
Yeah.
Attention to detail.
Attention to detail. So. I mean, yeah, it was phenomenal. Yeah. And literally, sun up to sundown, didn't matter. If they were in front of you, they were giving you 100%.
You were their priority.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
I mean,
and you felt that way.
Oh, yeah.
Which is rare today, right? Again, we talk about customer service, bar none, is top of the line as you could find. You mentioned Peru and climbing to
Machu Picchu.
Machu Picchu. My dad and I did that climb 4 days, and it was the only other time that I'd experienced the quality of customer service was that climb, the porters that we had take us up Machu Picchu. But I would almost say that our guides and porters for Kili were better than even them. And I love hearing that it wasn't a one-off, that every time we send a group, it's still, everybody says the same thing, top notch.
I think it's important too, Lance, is in our healing, you know, sheepdogs by nature are a give first personality.
Yes.
And I think the power in the experience of graciously accepting all the gifts that they were bestowing upon us, all of the help that they wanted us to take, all of the support that they gave. I think for a lot of us, and I'll speak for myself, but I watched it in you know, my fellow climbers, we have that moment in Warrior Path where the shift begins, where the students begin to understand okay, I can be the best version of myself. I deserve to be the best version of myself. I think individually, each one of us at some point, the shift on the mountain was, I am worthy of this support and this, encouragement, and there's nothing wrong with accepting it. And I think for anybody listening, to the podcast, the parallels between what we try to do here for our sheepdogs was really on full display with the porters and the guides and in the climb, because you have to get to that point where it's okay to accept help from somebody.
Yeah.
And they went above and beyond. So again, powerful.
Very, very much so. I think that you said it well, just a willingness to stop and give. And I think in many ways in their culture, like a lot of cultures around the world, it's an insult not to be willing to receive that gift, of someone wanting to help you, right? It's odd, again, you think about us as Americans, it's, we're very standoffish when it comes to people helping us or giving, and we don't also look at the gift of giving, the gift for ourselves in giving, right? I think sheepdogs, to your point, do, but in a culture like that, they take so much pride in being able to serve and sacrifice and help us achieve a goal like that. Is really powerful. So you're shifting from the mountain itself a little bit to the safari, which is just kind of that cherry on top of such an amazing experience being there in Tanzania. Coming down off the mountain, celebrating, the climb and the effort that everyone puts in there. But then you're able to go on a safari and see what everybody imagines is Africa, right? It's the giraffes and zebras and gazelles and lions. And speak briefly to that. Was there a favorite part of that trip, an animal that you saw that you'd always wanted to see, or anything like that?
If I could start,
Yeah.
This is probably not what you want to hear, but it's what I'm going to say is my favorite part about the safari experience. It was recognizing the similarities in each of the climbers as it related to a good cup of coffee. Right? We left, and we had great coffee while we were at the camp, but when we left the camp and started driving to the safari destination, we stopped in this cafe to pick up our lunches, and all of us got in line and, bought this really nice cup of coffee. And we all enjoyed it. We all savored it. And then on the safari at one of the break stops, again, we all lined up to get a nice cup of coffee. And the reason it was so memorable was when we were sitting eating our lunch, waiting for coffee, a monkey hopped out of the tree, ransacked somebody's lunch, and took off running with the food. But, again, not to make light of the amazing animals that we saw, and I'll let them kind of talk through the ones that we saw. Again, to Jason's point, just the human connection and the realizing that you had 6 individuals from different parts of the country, from different socioeconomic backgrounds, who all served in different capacities and different services and different times of service, yet we all came together over our love of coffee. And it was just one of those things that was, for me, it was a throwback to the things that I loved about being a Marine, was that first cup of coffee in the morning, whether it was off the squad stove or off the chuck wagon, and that last cup of coffee, again, usually off your squad stove before you went to sleep for the night. The bonding and the connection that took place over coffee. And obviously the coffee in Tanzania is amazing. So for me, that, not what you were looking for, but
No.
that was my fondest memory of the safari.
But that I think is powerful in itself, right? It's we find these special moments in places that so often we're not expecting them, right? And to me it's like, well, the safari is about the animals, but the fact that, the animals are nice, but again, it was a bonding moment that was special to you, I think is unique. And I think for those that aren't watching, Jason was confirming that the monkey stole your lunch.
He stole my lunch, man.
Stole your lunch.
He stole my lunch. You can't leave anything around them jokers, man.
No.
And I think it was probably like a little red apple or something in there that had color on it. I'm sure is what he honed in on, but he grabbed that. And I can't remember, I think half the team was sitting at the table and this thing jumped up there and just whack, and then took off.
It reminds me of young Lance Corporal's gear adrift, right?
That's
So
right.
Jason obviously wasn't
It's my fault,
managing his gear
That's
properly,
right.
his
That's
chow.
right.
So,
Gear adrift.
what was, outside of the monkey taking your lunch, was there anything that really kind of stood out to you about the safari?
Man, so it's just the animals in general, right? So I think so aside from the people piece of it, just the animals in general, right? Because you go to a zoo and you're a kid and you see something in a cage and you're like, oh, there's the hippo, or oh, there's the monkey, or whatever the case may be, right? But seeing them kind of in their natural habitat and walking around, and I mean, we kind of all turned into little kids, and we're like, stop, and we jump up and we start taking pictures, and we're like, oh, did you get it? Please tell me you got it, because sometimes the animals will be on that side of the Jeep, and I'd be sitting on this side of the Jeep. I'm like, please, just get it, and then like we just turn into big kids, man, trying to get these pictures of these animals. But I mean, you can see there's thousands of animals out there to take a look at. The rhino was probably. That's probably because I'd never.
See, I've been twice and still not seen a rhino.
Yeah.
That's the one that I want to see and still haven't seen.
Yeah, I mean, he was way off, but I mean, he looked like a Mack truck. I mean, he was huge.
Yeah, there's something about animals in their environment versus in the zoo too, right? And it's the one that always stood out to me. This isn't an African animal, but was that killer whales, that big dorsal fin, but in captivity, it's not up; it flops over. So it just kind of shows how it just kind of takes their spirit out of them.
Right.
But so you go to Africa and you go out on a safari. They're not in a zoo, and you just kind of the spirit, the sense of them being bigger than life, really takes hold on the safari. Out there in the Serengeti, I think we go back to the Lion King, Jen, when you mentioned it. It was like the Lion King, right?
It really was.
You'd look out and every type of animal, because in Lion King you thought, okay, again, Disney's making it look cute by having all the animals in this open prairie together, but then you go out there on the Serengeti and that's what it's like.
Yeah, we
Just
saw the
animals,
warthog.
they're all just mingled in together, right?
It was pretty incredible. Never imagining that I would experience something like that as well. And getting in there, the very first sight of like a zebra, you're like, oh my gosh, take a picture, because who knows if you're going to see another one. And next thing you know, there's thousands and just thousands of zebras and just every animal that you could think of in the safari, and there it was. And they just, the way they mingled together and herd together, and then seeing the rhino is pretty awesome and rare, because they told us that it's very rare to see. And then I think it was as we were headed out, because we were leaving the safari and going to the airport, so we were kind of wrapping up kind of fast, trying to see everything. And there was a lion that we saw started going out, and you could tell he was kind of on the prowl, and he was ready to go hunt those zebra and
The wildebeest?
Yeah, the wildebeest out there. And just the fact that, like, this is real life. Like, I felt like we were in a movie or something, because you're just surrounded. And there's just the beauty of it. You can look out and see so far, and you just see animals, and there's elephants over here and giraffes over here, and just the way they all kind of intertwine but then stay away from each other. And 10 minutes later, who knows what that lion was going to have for dinner that night, was probably right in front of him. So
He had a buffet laid out before him.
He
It's
did.
like, what do I want to eat tonight,
which
right?
one looks the most meatiest, right?
One of the things that jumped out at me, the guides were talking about it, because you see all these different types of animals intermingling, but then it's to learn, well, they each have a different sense that they use to warn one another. So you've got animals that see better, hear better, smell better, and they all kind of intermingle, knowing that each of them has a special sense in helping to warn others about, prey, etc. So I think about that from a standpoint of watching animals stalk. We had a lioness come up quite literally underneath our vehicle. She was using it for cover, right? Because the animals are used to these tourists.
Yeah.
So the lioness had learned to use even the tourists as an opportunity to get closer, because the vans and the people didn't scare the animals. So I'm sure she was using our smell and our noises to cover everything that she was doing, and she had a warthog in her sights.
Wow.
So, Yeah, very special from that standpoint. You don't get that at the zoo.
No.
You don't get a lioness come hide up under your stroller or something, but so very special. So, as we kind of wrap up this episode and really kind of talking about this experience called Kilimanjaro, if someone out there is listening and thinking about attempting this experience and or adventure, what is something that you would recommend in the preparation process? Something that maybe you did and you're super glad that you did, or maybe something you didn't do and you wish you'd done more of. Whatever that might be that helped you kind of accomplish the task and meet that challenge. Jen, let's start with you.
I think just the biggest thing is just to get off the couch. It sounds so simple, but really in preparation for it, you've told us, go walk for 10 hours a day or make sure you can stay on your feet. And for me, I just really took it as being able just to continue and get up and go. And just one step in front of the other. From the stories of the teams that have been in the past, they share this pole, and you don't really understand it till you get there. But for me, I love to hike. I've always been out, but I'm a day hiker. Go out for a couple hours and come back in. I don't stay out overnight. And I still never had done anything like that until being on the mountain. But just the fact that just to get up and go and walk. And it's not even about the altitude. It's not about, carrying a certain amount of weight. It was just making sure your legs could just continue to go, just hour after hour, minute after minute.
Yeah, I think there is that key element of, for me, it was just that you're on your feet for so long, right? To your point, I kept stressing, just stay on your feet as much as you can, because it's not about the speed or the pace, because you can go at your own pace. It's just that you're going to be on your feet for a long period of time.
And one day it might be 4 hours, and one day it might be 8 to 10 hours. You just don't know. So just the ability to do that day after day for 7, 8 straight days is just really important, just to keep moving.
Yeah.
That's actually exactly the way I train. So you kind of took my thunder, but for me personally, I was just getting up. I would get up every day, probably somewhere in the 5:30 hour, and I would just go out and walk. I think the shortest walk I would do is 5 miles, and then on weekends I may do like a 9 or a 10, but I would walk every day, and I averaged 3.2 miles per hour. I know that because I walk every day, and I did it literally based on your advice. Just get on your feet, time in boots, make sure that you're used to walking around a lot, and that's all I did. So, 5 miles may sound like a lot. Start with 1 or start with 2, but start somewhere.
Build up to it, right?
Build up to it, and then for me personally, and that was one of the things that everybody, in addition to time in boots and just getting used to that time on your feet, everybody's like, well, how are you going to train for altitude? Well, man, you live in the U.S. You ain't going to train for a 20,000 foot mountain. You're not going to do it, right? So altitude is what it is. So I just focused on. Nate and I had this conversation multiple times on the mountain. I focused on the things that I can control. Things that I can control include not drinking, getting out on the trail and walking around, my diet, my prep work, hydration. Those types of things I can control. As long as I can control those, then I'll focus on the controllables and I'll get up that mountain.
Yeah, that speaks volumes, because outside of going and living at altitude, there's not really anything you can do to prepare for altitude. I mean, we've seen it with our own teams. I've felt it. I mean, altitude, it doesn't matter how much you walk. If the mountain decides it doesn't want you on it, that altitude is going to send the best of us down it, right? And we've had marathon runners, people that just finished running an Ironman and finish strong, go and try and climb and not make it to the top. So it's a very unique situation. And then I've seen individuals who, weighed 30 pounds heavier than they needed to, get up to top of it with no problem at all. So it just really unique from that standpoint. But Nate, what's your thoughts from a training and someone out there preparing?
Yeah, no, and I'll segue off of what Jason said, control what you can, diet, exercise, and water consumption. Of course, Jason and I turned water consumption into a challenge.
Got to be
A competition.
everything's a competition.
And every morning we were pacing each other, but then he turned around and made fun of how many times I had to go to the bathroom on the trail. But to your question, kind of something that maybe folks wouldn't think about, but for me, dovetailing off of the time in boots and on your feet, two things I would recommend to anybody who's going to get serious about trying to summit anything: pickle juice and toe socks. I soaked my feet in pickle juice, and that was a old trick that my father taught me as a little leaguer who was a catcher. Spent a lot of time with my hands getting beat up and a lot of potential for calluses and things like that. And so he told me to soak my hands in pickle juice. And as I was preparing, I recently lost my father, so he was not heavy on my mind, and I started thinking, what would Dad say about this and pickle juice? So I soaked my feet in pickle juice every other day to toughen them up so that I would resist hot spots and blisters, and then toe socks to separate the toes, particularly on the moments where you were either at a steep angle in climb or steep angle in decline, keeping those toes separated to limit the friction between the insides of the toes. That would be my advice to anybody, no matter how seasoned you are, because look, after 34 years in the Marine Corps, all of it in division units, I spent a lot of time on my feet, and I thought I knew everything, but that, for me, was a game changer. 8 days, not a single blister, not a single hot spot, no problems with my feet, and I realized early on that I was so worried about the boogeyman that was altitude that what could have taken me off the mountain wouldn't have been my feet, because I have terrible feet. So that would be my advice: pickle juice and toe socks.
No, yeah, that speaks volumes. I think for me it was learning about merino wool years ago, getting away from cottons and polyesters and everything. Merino wool enabling my feet to sweat and breathe. And then at this age of my life, to your point on feet, the Marine Corps worst investment, and it's frustrating to think about how poor of an investment it was that they would give us the worst boots on the planet. And why the Marine Corps in hindsight wasn't thinking about, especially from an infantryman standpoint, right, is their feet. We need to take care of our Marines' feet as much as anything, and yet it was always the least invested in item, right? And then once I started buying good quality Marine Corps boots, when the Marine Corps let us start buying our own boots, it changed the game. And so for me, Kili was kind of the same way. And for me, I'd started testing myself on other mountains, but merino wool and then Hoka boots. And I know you're wearing a pair of Hoka hiking boots. I was kind of looking at everybody else's footwear.
Banners. I summited in
Banners.
Hokas as well.
Yeah, so just things like that. But I think the reality, y'all have all kind of shared that what I would call the most critical is, it has always to do with kind of your feet, which is what are you putting on your feet, and are you putting weight on them, i.e. hiking and standing, just having your legs and feet ready for the rigors of walking, standing, climbing. And there's not really anything else more important to that, in my opinion. You're not carrying a lot of weight because the porters do that for you. And outside of that, probably the only other thing might be sleep. Having a pillow or something, whatever you need to do to enable you to get a good night's rest. I keep going back to, because people talk about all this magical gear you need when there's not a lot. It's your feet and sleeping.
Yeah, that's what the guides told us. I think you guys may recall that they said the three things that are going to get you up the mountain is hydration, food, and sleep.
Yeah,
it's like if you take care of those three,
You'll make it.
we will get you up the mountain.
we'll get you there. That pulley is the key.
Oh yeah,
Slow, pulley. Well, any save round or anything y'all can think of that before we wrap up?
I think the other thing that was just super important to me that helped me even before the climb was our group connected in a special way in our group text message, and then having our little Kili meet and greet before we went. Every day almost, it was some sort of gear talk, encouragement. Hey, I just went and hiked this. I did 5 miles. I did 3 miles. Or, hey, I'm struggling with this. How can you help? And so we all had each other to bounce these struggles or thoughts or ideas and, just gear, any of that. Mentally, sometimes we were struggling like, holy crap, we're 2 weeks out. Like, are we really ready for this, and doubt and all that. And we had each other, and we built that relationship before we even got on the mountain and had that encouragement from each other. And so I think like anybody thinking about doing this, even if they're doing it solo or, the next group of sheepdogs that go up, like take that time to really get to know the people you're going with and encourage each other. Because if it wasn't for these guys and the other 3 sending text messages saying that they just did 5 miles, I might not have got off the couch that day. I might have just said, I'll do it tomorrow, but then I was like, well, if Nate's doing it, I got to do it. So, let's go walk. And even though we're far away, I still felt like I was training and with these people before we went. So.
Well, that's good to hear. And as we prepare this next group, I think we're one person away from finalizing this year's climb or this upcoming year's climb. I'd love for you all to be able to come back when we host that initial group meeting for all of them to come together in May as they start to get to know each other like y'all did. Share that, because I think that's important to know that, hey, let's be challenging each other to get ready and do our best. So, well, I certainly appreciate y'all joining us for this podcast and sharing, and hopefully your words will be encouraging and inspirational, which I know they will be. And so for anyone out there listening, we appreciate you giving us an opportunity to spend time with you remotely via our podcast. If you have things that you'd like to share or encourage us to talk about, we really try to focus on fellow sheepdogs, what it is that they do for a living, things that have inspired them in their lives, in the hopes to bring that to you as an audience. But we are always looking for ideas on things that we can bring to bear in our podcast. And in closing, and I know the commercial touched on it, we really want to give a big shout out and thank you to Sam's Furniture, Joe and Lara Donaldson, and everyone associated with Sam's Furniture who make our climb annually possible. They are the absolute key sponsor, and when I say key, they're covering 90% plus of all of our expenses in enabling us to get to Africa and experience the climb, the safari, and just the experience in itself of being in Tanzania. So again, big shout out to Joe and Lara Donaldson, Sam's Furniture, and to you as an audience. Many of you listening are probably supporters of ours. Thank you for what you give to us as an organization, enabling us to do the best that we can for our fellow sheepdogs. Thank you again.
Thanks for having us.
And team, and we appreciate you. And thanks for sharing, and thanks for what y'all do for our great nation and for this organization as well. All right. Thanks again. And as McKenna, our director offset, is sitting over there watching us, has shared, we are on episode 12, and we're excited to bring more episodes to you in the coming days, weeks, and months. All right. God bless everybody out there.